Good morning. I am Deb Cruzy. I have been asked by Ashley to talk to new homeschool moms or homeschool moms that have sent in some questions for old homeschool moms, and so I'm going to try to answer your questions. Our homeschool story, how we began and what led to that decision, is the first question. And my husband and I both grew up in Christian homes and in Christian schools, K through college. And our worldview was shaped by that. And we understood and grew to learn that God was in the center of everything. He's in the center of science. He's in the center of math and culture. And that was important to us, and we wanted to pass that on to our children. So early on, I guess we never questioned that we would send our kids to Christian school and continue that. And so we had two kiddos a year apart, two babies, and we assumed we would send them to the Christian school in our town, and my husband's job changed, and we were moved to a different town in a different place, and there was no Christian school available. So we were struggling with sending them to the public school. And one day I was home and I was listening to Focus on the Family, which was kind of my lifeline to the outside world, with two babies at home, two toddlers, and Focus on the Family and Larry, our mailman, who I would just wait for every day. And it's like, Larry, what's new today in the outside world? I was just home with two babies. And but anyway, on Focus on the Family, they had Raymond and Dorothy Moore, who had written a book, Better Late Than Early, and they were proponents of home education. And I had never heard of this before. I never knew it was a thing. I never knew it was an option. So I got the book and I started to read and learn more about it, and just became convicted that this was what we were supposed to do: keep our kids home, and we would be responsible to educate them in the way we felt the Lord was leading us, the way that was His way. And so my husband, we came to an agreement that yes, this is what we were supposed to do. So at that time we lived in Iowa, and homeschooling, they didn't have any laws. So we didn't really have guidelines to follow. And there were two other families in our town that were homeschooling at the time. And we connected with them, and they were so, just so kind. And this would be in 1990 maybe. So we just started from there. And I also had this feeling that I wanted our kids to be home because I enjoyed them and I loved their company, and I wasn't really willing to turn them over to somebody else to have all the fun and all the excitement of their learning. I was kind of selfish, and I wanted to do it, have them home with me. So we just prayed, and I read what little there was available to read, and we picked the brain of the other two homeschool moms, and we got started. So it was kind of easy, kind of an easy thing for us. It wasn't too weird, but and our families were so supportive, and that helped too. Our parents were supportive and encouraging in this time when it was such a weird thing to do. But anyway, the next question somebody asked is, what do you wish you would have told your younger self when you were first starting out? Well, and I should say, I guess, we have 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls, and our first 2 were a year apart, and then 4 or 5 years later we had another girl, and then another girl 4 or 5 years later, and then a boy. So between the 2 boys is 12 years. So I had quite a gap. So we always say we have the bigs and the littles. So if I refer to bigs and littles, we kind of were doing school with bigs and littles. So, but when we started, all that was available was Bob Jones curriculum, and Abeka was selling to homeschool families. And that was pretty much the only curriculum, the Christian school curriculum. So we ordered the Bob Jones, the full first grade curriculum. So it came, and it was big binders for teachers to teach a class. So, and it was scripted. So the teacher says this, and then does this, and then you do these worksheets. And man, it was kind of overwhelming. Just sitting down and looking at this whole big thing, it's like, I don't think I can do this. And a wise friend came, one of the other homeschool moms came and said, well, can you do lesson 1? Well, I looked at lesson 1, and yes, I could do lesson 1. And she said, can you do lesson 2? And I said, yes. And she goes, that's all you have to do. Just do a lesson, then do the next lesson, then do the next lesson. So that's how we started, with a full curriculum. And looking back, and that was with the bigs that were little then, I would tell myself to relax. And what I've learned through all of the years of homeschooling, those early elementary years, we just need to relax and focus on math. And this is my opinion. This is what worked for us. Focus on math and focus on reading. And in my opinion, if they can read well with understanding and clarity, and if they can do math well, they can teach themselves anything. They can go anywhere and do anything. So with the littles that came up behind, I had kind of came into that realization and learned that. So we really focused more on reading and math, and then we just read. We got library books. If somebody was interested in something, we read about it. It was fine. It was just fine in those early elementary years. And they played, and I would just say, relax. Our day did not look like a school day at a school. It was our own. So I think that's the first thing I would have told myself. And the biggest thing, I think. And the next question is, how did you make sure your kids were ready for the ACT and college courses? To be honest, I didn't do that. Our big 2 went into the ACT test cold. We didn't prepare. They just went in, and it was probably one of their first times in a classroom, actually. It may have been. But they just went in and took the test and did fine. They did average. And then our younger three, by then I didn't even do much. I went to Barnes and Noble and bought an ACT prep workbook that was thick, and we just kind of worked through that for the school year. Practiced test taking mostly, and they took the test as well and did fine. But again, this is how we did it. Other families prepped more and focused more, and that was important to them. And it was, I guess it just wasn't that important to us. But I will say all 5 of the kiddos were admitted to at least one university, and some of them were admitted to several. So that didn't end up to be a problem. How did I prepare them for college courses? When they were in high school grades, we dual enrolled them with the local community college so they could take college classes and earn high school and college credit. And they were in a classroom setting, which was important, I thought, with a teacher that was not me. And so they could just learn to do how that all worked. And so that worked well for us. They could get that learning, just learning a new skill, basically, being in a classroom and working for somebody else. I think one of the biggest things that helped the kids succeed in college was the ability to teach themselves, which goes back kind of to the if they can read well and do math, they can teach themselves anything. So in some of the upper grades in high school, my high schoolers, I had kindergartners and elementary kids at the time also. I would give them the textbook and the assignments, and they could work through it themselves and take the tests and work independently, which is important in college, to be able to pace yourself and work independently. So I don't know, they kind of all succeeded. They did all succeed. So I don't think I can take credit for that. But anyway, the next question is, what subjects did you do all together without worrying about grade level? Well, again, in our situation, we always did Bible all together in the mornings because that's just what we did. And you can. And I learned over the years too, that if I teach to the bigs, then the littles, it'll filter down and the littles will catch what they can. And it was stunning to me, to all of us, how much the littles absorbed from listening to the conversation of the bigs. So don't feel you need to do everything for each grade level. Our older 2 are a year apart. They did all their schoolwork together. I started them both in kindergarten together, and they moved through together. The younger 2 did a lot together as well, just because it's easier. And but going back to teaching, by the time the little ones came along, the big ones were in high school, and so they were working independently. I'm kind of stumbling over my thoughts, but well, when the older ones were schooling, the little ones were still babies or elementary, and they would just sit in on the classes, and we read history together, and the littles would be there listening, and we read science together. One of my favorite memories is of he must have been about 5, was sitting on the counter watching his big brother pull a strand of DNA out of, I think it was an onion. So, and just watching and looking in the microscope and watching the technique and absorbing. And it's wonderful. We're all learning together all the time. So, and it may not be directly from a text. So we can relax about that. What are your favorite memories? There's a lot of favorite memories. We just lived life together, and it was wonderful. It was just wonderful. I'd say lunch times were one of my favorite memories. We would all stop for a lunch break, and everyone, occasionally I would do a read aloud book, a chapter book, while the kids were eating lunch. And so I would read while they were eating, and then of course the chapter always stops at a cliffhanger. And so I would stop at the chapter, and they would stop eating and pound their forks on the table. Read more, read more, read more. So on we would go to the next chapter, or maybe not. So I loved that. At lunch, we played different games. We would play a game, Who Am I Thinking Of? And we would give clues to the other people at the table to guess who we were thinking of. We lived in the country, so we didn't have close neighbors. So once in a while we would play a game, I guess, where what would it sound like if you jumped off a cliff? What would you sound like a screaming contest? And they would just scream at the top of their lungs, and we would laugh, and so many good memories with that. Another good memory is, we did everything together. I took them with me everywhere because that's just how it was. So we would run errands together. We would get groceries together. We would go to the library, and the librarians knew us, of course. And with each new baby, I would be like, we'll get back to normal here soon. And they would just smile and say, I don't know if you'll ever be normal. But the library was just a highlight, and I made the rule, you can only check out as many books as you can carry your own self, because I had the baby and the stroller and the diaper bag and my own books. So they got pretty creative at how they could carry enough books for their week. But and another good memory is algebra, math. Higher math is not my strong suit, and for a couple of the kiddos, the girls, it wasn't their strong suit either. So we would struggle with a math lesson and work and end up both of us in tears. And it was just so hard, but it was so good. And in hindsight, it was good because we worked at it together, and we persevered and continued together. And it wasn't easy, but we kept at it. And I think that's important. And that's good memories too. And then the final question is, what advice would I give to moms that are just starting out? When we started, we did not have social media. We did not have, I just had a few books I ordered, and 2 other families. So we figured out what homeschooling would look like for our family, with my personality and the kids' personalities and the children's ages. We figured what was best for us. and how the Lord directed us. And some of my friends were formal educators with desks and a schoolroom. Some of them unschooled. They just followed the direction of their children's interest. Um, and then some were like me, that were more relaxed, and so everybody's different, and every family is different. And I guess I would just say, don't uh, don't focus so much on what other people are doing. Find your own path, and what looks perfect for another family may not work perfectly for you. You just need to do what works for you, and be comfortable with that. It's okay if it's not perfect or picture perfect for the world. It just needs to be what's good for your family, your children, and how the Lord wants you to move. I would say also that there are going to be hard days and hard seasons. It's not all glorious and just sweet, loving hearts all the time. There are days when you are going to wish that the school bus would stop outside your house and take your children to school for the day so you can breathe. It's just a reality because we're all humans. But I just encourage you to press on, and not to get discouraged or downhearted or give up. Just press on, because and there are going to be seasons of where you feel like the children aren't learning anything. I had some hip issues and needed a hip replacement, and kind of big physical things when you have little 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kiddos at home. And it's like schooling just kind of fell by the wayside for a while. But we learned, but it wasn't wasted. The Lord did not waste that season in our lives. My children learned compassion for someone that's hurting. They learned how to step in and help, how to see that someone needs help. Mom is struggling with her book bag or her purse or whatever, and they stepped in to help. They learned more in the kitchen and more work in the laundry, keeping the house up. They learned how to navigate doctor's offices with someone on a walker, and how to go to Walmart and get someone one of the mechanical carts, and how to be embarrassed when that person runs into the aisles. It's like, So living life is not wasting our time. Just being in school books isn't the only part of this. Building character and building relationships for our family was the biggest deal. We wanted people that would love the Lord, love each other, and love other people, and be hard workers. And our children have all succeeded at that. I also wanted to tell you there are going to be the hard days and seasons. And we had high schoolers and we had elementary age kids. And I was in the tub one night. The kids all knew when Mom headed to the tub at the end of the day for the night, we do not interrupt her ever. We just don't. So it had been a hard day. I don't even remember why or what, but just the weight of having high school children was so heavy. And especially our oldest son, because he was going to need to provide for a family someday. He needed to be equipped to do that and able to do that. And And it was just, I just felt it was all on me, how everybody turned out, how all 5 of these precious lives turned out was all on my shoulders. If they were smart, if they were kind, if they were able to earn an income, just was all on me, is how it felt. And I was just soaking and praying and just heavy. And the Lord spoke to me and spoke to my heart and just said, they are mine. I've got it. I've got it, Deb. They're mine. So it's like, okay. It isn't all you, Mama. The Lord is blessing and guiding and leading, and He loves our children more than we do, and He'll take care of them and guide them. And that I just will never forget that, because it was just a burden lifted. And there were